Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for coming along to this Learning Lunchtimes webinar. These webinars are being run by the Flourishing Churches team, so they're about giving and church growth. So I hope you're in the right place. This is Cultivating Your Regular Givers. My name is Kate Ford. I'm the Giving Advisor for the Diocese, and I'm going to be running this webinar. So before we start, there's just a few housekeeping points that I want to run through, just in case you haven't been to a webinar like this before. So firstly, we can't see or hear you at all, so feel free to eat your sandwiches. Don't worry if the cat's climbing over your computer, nobody is watching you. But that also means that if you want to make a comment or ask a question as we go along, please can you type that in using the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. So it should be just right at the bottom of the screen. So just click on the button and you can type in a comment or question. I'm not going to address those as we go. I'll wait right till the end and then take all the questions and comments that you have right at the very end, if that's okay, just so we don't disturb the flow. Secondly, this webinar is being recorded, so if you suddenly lose internet connection or the doorbell rings and you get called away, don't worry, we'll be sending around a link for you to watch it back again at your own convenience, so don't worry about that. And as well as sharing the recording, we'll also be sending out a copy of all of my slides and all the links that I refer to during the webinar, so don't feel that you have to scribble everything down. We'll be emailing all of that out to you this afternoon. And finally, I just want to recognise there's a wide range of people and parishes represented here today. We've got clergy, treasurers, church wardens, PCC members and parishes that are large and small from all over the diocese. So if this wasn't quite what you were expecting, or if you don't feel it's relevant to your parish, please do get in touch, because I'd love to have a chat individually with you about how this topic might apply more specifically to your parish. So this is all about cultivating your regular givers. And this is something that I'm really passionate about, because I really think that this is at the heart of growing a culture of generosity in our churches. And yet it's something that I don't see happening very much on a very big scale when I'm out and about in parishes. And I can see that from a parish perspective, running a giving campaign and asking for money is quite an urgency, and you know that you'll get immediate results from it, so it becomes a priority. Whereas this longer term, softer stuff with less obvious, tangible results can so easily slip further and further down the things to do list in a parish. So what I'd like to do in this webinar is to reinforce why cultivating your donors is so important, and to give you some really easy practical tips that I hope any parish might be able to begin to implement. So let's start right at the beginning. What do I mean by cultivating your regular givers? In a church context, I would define it as this: building deeper relationships with your regular givers to encourage sustained and joyful giving. So let's break that down a bit. Relationships. Of course, churches will have rich pastoral relationships with all their congregation members, but this is specifically in the context of finance and giving, about being able to talk about money freely and openly with trust and honesty. And sustained and joyful giving, isn't that the ultimate aim? And I know it can feel like an impossible dream, that your congregation might feel so joyful about their giving that they want to keep giving and giving you more. I've mentioned this in parishes and been actually people have laughed out loud when I've talked about joyful giving. But we'll be talking throughout the webinar about gradually building that culture of generosity in a church. And I just think keeping this in mind as your ultimate goal will really shape how you talk about finances and giving, what you say and how you say it. Cultivating donors is not about pressure to give. It's about building relationships and building a shared vision that people really want to support. Why does it matter? It matters because regular givers are the ones who sustain the mission and ministry in your parish. Nationwide, more than 3/4 of the cost of parish ministry is funded by giving. And thanking those who give in a detailed and a thoughtful way, and taking the time to show how their contributions are being used, is so important in making sure your givers feel that their gifts are valued and that they're making a difference. There are many parishes in this diocese who depend on a really small number of committed donors. So looking after them and caring for them as donors is essential. Cultivating givers is important for encouraging a culture of generosity and stewardship. In many parishes that I've been into, money is not openly discussed. It's discussed at PCC, but not within the wider congregation. And by nurturing regular givers and talking about giving positively, you just normalize generosity as an expected and a joyful part of parish life. Cultivating givers helps to build transparency and trust to demonstrate good stewardship of your resources. It really matters to people how the money they give is used. And I think in parishes, there can be a temptation to think, well, people's giving is their own private discipleship practice. We don't need to talk about it or make a fuss about it. It's a personal thing. But I think both of those things can be true at the same time. I think they can be giving out of faith and as part of their discipleship, and it can really matter to them how their money is used at the same time. It's not either or. When donors are kept informed about parish finances, about mission, goals, projects, and their outcomes, it really builds their confidence in how that money is being used. And cultivating donors helps to lay the foundation for legacy giving and long term planned giving. Donors who feel connected and valued are much more likely to consider making a legacy gift in their will. Legacy giving is a whole other webinar for another day, but legacy gifts can be huge. They don't have to be, but they can be absolutely transformational for a parish. And legacy gifts often come from very unexpected people. For many people, a gift in their will is a way that they can make a really significant gift to their church in a way that they just couldn't do during their lifetime. And regular givers who are well cultivated understand and support the long-term vision of the church and not just its immediate short-term needs. So how can you cultivate your regular givers? There are 4 key bits of the message that I want us to think about today. The first of those is thanking and thoughtful thanking. Thanking donors makes them feel valued and seen. It reinforces that their giving is making a real difference in your parish. But here's the thing, in a recent survey of 2,000 regular worshippers in Church of England parishes, less than a third said that they were regularly thanked for their giving. Less than a third of Church of England worshippers said that they were regularly thanked for their giving. Prompt and personal thank yous are so important. I'm going to say this again. I know that in a parish, it's easy to remember to ask for more money because it's desperately needed and it's high on the PCC's priority list. And it's easy to forget to send out the thank you letters when there's just a million other things on your to-do list. I know, I do get that. So let's have a think about writing a really good thank you letter. Here are a few thoughts from me. Firstly, it must be a pure and unadulterated thank you. A thank you letter is a thank you. Please avoid the temptation to include PS. Please also review your giving and consider whether you can increase your gift. Your letter should be about gratitude and nothing else. Make it personal. Giving is deeply relational, and I know it's significantly more work than photocopying a dear friend letter, but can you show your appreciation for their generosity and the connection to the church by personally addressing your thank you letters? So that could be having their name at the top. If it's a couple that give, please make sure you include both names. Often the gift aid declaration has to be in one name or the other, but the thank you letter must be addressed to both of them. Hand sign the letter, and ideally add just a little brief personal handwritten note at the bottom too, so it really feels like it is a genuinely personal thank you letter. Be concise, keep your letter to a couple of really compelling paragraphs rather than 2 sides of A4. If your letter's too long, people just won't read it or they will skim it, so please keep it short and to the point. Can you include impact, it's a good idea to include some of the ways that financial giving has enabled the mission and ministry of your church over the last year. So, can you share a summary of what your church's impact has been this year? You could include statistics, stories, pictures. If you've received a thank you message or a testimony from somebody who's benefited from your church's work, could you include a quote from them in your letter, passing on their thanks to your regular givers who make that work possible? If you want to take reporting on your impact even further, this is a template that I've got for an impact of giving report. So if I've worked with your parish, you'll know that I have a lot of Canva templates, which I can either send over to you or I can help you to customize these. And this impact of giving report is a little A5 booklet that you can customize for your parish, and you could pop it inside a thank you letter just to make the point to your givers, this is the impact that our church has, and this is all funded by you. So it really helps people to realise what a difference their giving makes. And again, I'll send around a link to that at the end if you're interested in customising one of those. Mix it up and try to do something different with your thank you letter each year. Please don't use the same template year in and year out. Could you use a different format? Could you have a different focus each year, or have your letter come from a different person? So it could be the incumbent one year, the treasurer, the church warden the next, or even some young people in your congregation. Just be mindful of confidentiality. So it is important to make sure either that your letter comes from someone that the giver expects will know the details of their giving, or else it makes clear that the signatory doesn't know how much that person gives. So it could say, I understand you are one of our regular givers, but I don't know how much you give. So it's just important to recognise that in the letter. And thanking your donors shouldn't just be done in a letter once a year. How about sending postcards to your regular givers with just one or two really impactful sentences from time to time? Could you send them a Christmas card which just includes some of those points? Could you thank them face to face? Could you write a list of 3 or 4 people each month that you want to thank face to face and just say, I know you're one of our regular givers and I want to say thank you for everything that you enable in our church? That has so much impact. And can you celebrate generosity publicly? So can you thank all your regular givers at events, in the notices, on your social media, on your website? So that's thanking. Next, we're going to think about informing. Donors need to know how their giving makes a difference, and transparent and regular updates really help to build their trust and to build your accountability. People need to be able to see two things. Firstly, that their financial support is needed, but also that it is effective and fruitful. The church is using their gifts wisely and transparently. And I think it's easy to assume that everyone knows about our financial situation. I've heard that a lot in parishes, though everyone knows. But do they? The PCC do. It's their job to know. But how much does everyone else know and understand about your finances? Update people regularly. Don't leave this kind of information to only your APCM once a year. Just get into the habit of sharing snippets of information throughout the year to keep people informed about your parish finances and what's happening in the parish. And remember, it's those two areas we want to update on. They need to know their gifts are needed and that their gifts are being used carefully and making a difference. Make it easy to understand. There will be people who can just pick up your annual accounts and get a picture from those of your financial situation, but most people can't. So could you share charts or a really concise and simple summary of where your income comes from and how it's spent? If I've worked with your parish before, you might recognise these charts from some of my regular giving templates. So we've got a pie chart here of how the if for every £50 we receive, we distribute to the following. And these are very broad overview terms, providing and supporting our clergy, the day-to-day running of the church, making our church warm and welcoming, and keeping the church in good repair. And similarly for our giving levels, our current giving levels. So it doesn't go into huge amounts of detail, but it just breaks down, this is how your gifts are being spent. And if people want more information, they can go and find it in your accounts. It's all about clear and honest communication about your finances and about your giving. It builds people's confidence and it motivates people to keep giving or even to increase their giving over time. So we've covered thanking and informing. What's next? Involving. So people are more likely to continue giving when they feel a sense of ownership and shared purpose. So involving your donors in a meaningful way connects them much more deeply to the life and mission of the parish. And that could be as simple as inviting them to a vision evening or a mission action planning away day. It could be inviting them to volunteer or to serve. It might even be asking for their feedback or input, as long as you're prepared to really listen to it. Or it might be asking them to pray for specific needs for your church at the moment. When people are involved, they don't just give to the church, but they give as the church. And again, that is such a big part of building that culture of generosity. And finally, inspiring, thinking back to that overall aim of making people feel joyful about their giving. How can we inspire people to feel that way? Connecting their giving to their faith, helping people to reflect on generosity as part of their discipleship. I'm sure most churches do this already, but this is about reminding donors that their giving is part of their spiritual journey and not just a financial transaction. Preaching and teaching about generosity shouldn't only happen once a year as part of your giving campaign when you're asking for more, but it can be happening all year round. And in fact, it has a lot more impact when you're not in the middle of a giving campaign and you're not asking for more at that particular moment. There are some great resources around to help you with this. So these are just a few that I've picked out, but there are lots more that I can share with you if these are of interest. So here I've got a series of really short films called Living Generously, which have been made by the Church of England. These are really good. They're designed for use with small groups, so they're about 8 minutes long, and they come with a PDF of discussion prompts and questions that can work with them. But you don't have to use them like that. You can use them as starters for sermon ideas for a sermon series or in lots of other ways in your parish. But they're really good. They reflect on different types of generosity. So, generosity with your time, attention, wealth, talents, possessions, that sort of thing. So, they're a really nice resource. They've been very well made. Preaching Generosity is an e-newsletter from the Diocese of Rochester, which has become really popular nationwide. So they're happy for anybody to sign up to it. What it does is every week it takes the lectionary readings and it pulls out some themes that link to generosity from the readings every week. So it just reminds you every week of some ideas about generosity that you can weave into your preaching and your teaching. And it's just a really nice weekly reminder of just remembering to add some messages about generosity into your preaching and teaching. And finally, there's lots of resources on the Church of England website to do with generosity, and they're really varied and they're very good. So there's generosity coffee mornings that you can run for your church with all the resources you might need for that. There's a PCC away day, lots of short films and worship resources and that type of thing. So I'll send around the links to all of these at the end as well. But do ask if you'd like some more detailed resources for those. Building a shared vision. This is about painting a picture of your parish vision for mission and growth and service and making people feel part of something that's bigger than themselves. Of course, it's important to talk about your income and expenditure and the day-to-day running of the church, but it can be easy to forget to paint the bigger picture and to bring people with you on that mission, that vision for the future. So you're not just asking people to give to keep the show on the road and to maintain the status quo, but to give for growth and mission and transformation. And when people share that vision with you, they want to give, they want to make it happen, and they become joyful givers. So make sure you talk about the future regularly and you bring people with you on that journey. That's what mission action planning is all about, and making sure it's not just the PCC who have a sense of that vision and direction of where you're heading, but everyone in the congregation. So talk about it as much as you can. And finally, storytelling. Stories and testimonies are a really compelling way to talk about your church's impact. Stories really resonate with people and they help people to connect emotionally with the real life impact of their generosity. So, could you start collecting stories or testimonies from people or families who have benefited from what your church does? How about starting with your PCC and asking them to collect or to make a list of any stories or testimonies they've heard recently? Those stories might well be anonymous and they should only ever be shared with permission from the people involved. But the great thing is that as well as helping you to talk about your church's impact, this can be really encouraging for your PCC and your volunteers, and it can remind them of all the ways their work is making a positive difference. Try to capture stories that cover a wide range of your church's activities and different areas of your ministry. A lot of people won't be aware of anything that happens outside of a Sunday. So you can then share those stories and testimonies as often as you can. You can use them in thank you letters, use them in giving campaigns, and just get into the habit of sharing them verbally with your congregation too. So we've covered thanking, informing, involving, and inspiring. Those are the four key parts of the message that you want to tell people. But when are you going to share them? By now, you won't be surprised to hear me say all year round and not just once a year in a thank you letter. But let's have a look at a few specific ideas. When someone starts giving regularly for the first time, or if they change how much they give, get in touch straight away to say thank you. They have just taken that decision to give, they've just made that commitment. So recognise that straight away. Don't let them wait for a whole year before you say anything to them about their giving. During services, you can regularly be showing appreciation for people's giving and telling them about the impact that it has. You might do that during the offertory or giving notices. It might be in the notices before or during a service. It might be during the sermon, in the prayers. The more that you build in messages about generosity, the more people just get used to hearing them. It just becomes part of the culture. Make sure you thank your givers at your APCM and not just a passing thank you, but really take the time to acknowledge their vital role in making the ministry of your church possible. And thinking back to those key messages that we discussed earlier, not just thanking them, but also informing and inspiring them too. Marking key milestones. So if your church is celebrating a particular achievement or milestone, perhaps achieving something you've been working towards in your mission action plan or starting a new ministry or outreach project, make sure you share that news specifically with your regular givers and thank them for their part in making it possible. So you might share those updates by email, in a postcard, in a newsletter, or on a notice sheet, on your social media or in person. And again, it's just about showing them what a difference their giving is making rather than just saying thank you. We spoke about this earlier, but look for opportunities to preach about generosity throughout the year and to thank and inspire your givers during sermons and talks. And throughout your building, use posters and notice boards to share all those key messages with your congregation and your visitors. And try to make sure those are switched around and kept fresh. So you're drip feeding small snippets of information rather than cramming a notice board full of figures that nobody reads and it stays there for years and years. I've got lots of templates for posters about giving. So if that's something you're looking at, do get in touch and I can help you with those. If you have a giving station or a contactless device in your church, make sure there's some inspiring and engaging information around it about what a difference giving makes to your church. At special events and fundraisers, so if you're holding a one-off fundraising event for the church, that's a really good opportunity to publicly recognise the significant contribution of those who give regularly, who have committed to a regular gift to enable and sustain the work of your church. And finally, I'm going to say it again, but sharing little snippets of these messages all year round is so much more impactful than writing one brilliant thank you letter once a year. You're keeping your congregation informed and engaged by weaving this narrative of impact and thanks and information into every area of church life. You can use all your regular communication channels to share those snippets by email, in a newsletter, in your notice sheet, on your social media, verbally at services and events. And I know that in a busy parish where there's lots going on and people have so much to do, it's easy to fall into the trap of only talking about money when you're asking for more. So please do start communicating all these messages as often as you can and growing that culture of generosity in your church. So that's it. I hope that's been helpful in some way and that everyone's found something that they can take away with them.